So it's Transformer Tuesday, and it looks like, yep, that Generation Selects Galvatron is going to be our Transformer Tuesday product. It's already on Hasbro Pulse. Go check that out and pre-order it if it tickles your Cybertronian fancy. So what we're going to do today is yet again another Transformer podcast Patreon listener question. And this is a Patreon listener question that I got about a week and a half ago, but I kind of delayed it because I wanted to wait until we got that true trailer of the Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Netflix series before I would answer it, because I really wanted more concrete information about how the aesthetic and the cast was going to be. So again, if you want to be part of the Patreon and support the podcast, let us know that we're doing a half decent job here on the daily Transformer news and all the craziness that we do here. Patreon.com/Protoman. Check the description or check the pinned comment. So what does the Patreon get? You get your name in the end credit scroll at the end of every segment moving forward from your patronage. Gets you access to the awesome Transformer Slag Discord where we break news, where news shows up for the first time. We also have all kinds of sales that we post there and deals, so we make your hobby cheaper. All kinds of cool stuff. Rare downloads too that I'm still have to work on. I got to put some new translations of Japanese stuff there. Depending on what tier you are, you also get a special little gift in the mail. I actually have to send out some of those soon for the super high tier Primus tier patrons. And of course, the Patreon listener question. So we got a question here from Space Ghostal, one of our longtime patrons, and he wants to know, and again, he asked that this question be asked before Kingdom comes out on Netflix, but of course, I wanted to be sure to answer this properly after we see at least the trailer. So we have that little in-between when it comes to answering this question. But he wants to know, what was the point of the Earthrise line if they weren't going to have those designs on screen? They went with that from Siege right into Kingdom with no Earthrise designs. I was really disappointed with that one. If they're going to do a rehash of G1 all the time, you might as well have it in some media. So that's his question. So, in all honesty, like my answer for that is that the budget with the War for Cybertron trilogy is pretty limited. I feel personally, I think that, and I have no confirmation of it. I'm pretty sure one day we'll have a real answer. I feel that the whole trilogy was probably all done in one shot, except for the voice acting. I'm pretty sure all the animation and everything was just done first, and they probably had a really good idea of how many character models and everything was going to be available to them, and of course the environments and the assets. Anyone who knows how CG is put together, it's a lot more like playing with a sandbox and building blocks than it is with 2D animation, especially like 2D animation during the celluloid kind of days, because that was an open canvas. You could create any characters, anyone could show up, you could draw anything. There was no limitations to it. The negative with CG is there is limitations, and then when you combine it with the fact you have something like Transformers, where each character that also exists has an extra layer of transformation and an alt mode, meaning a whole other, character model on top of a character model. I always fall back onto the Donkey Kong Country CG series that came out in the late 90s, and how they really had to stretch the budget, where they would take like 5 environments and maybe, I think it was like 6 different character models, and then retool and repaint those character models like 5 or 6 times to make new characters. And they did a 52 episode series with such a limited budget, and it was like shoestring, and that was the late 90s. Now we're talking, more than 20 years later, and we still see those same problems that exist with limited budget CG shows. And especially you see it if you go on Netflix and watch any random Korean CG show that exists. There's tons of them on there, all aimed at children, but you really see the limitations of the budget. You pay attention to, wow, there's only like 1 or 2 environments for the whole show, and they just play within those environments. And then they have maybe like 5 or 6 character models, and if new characters show up, they really are repaint/retools, no pun intended, of those character models. Now, what does that have to do, again, with Space Ghostal's question? Well, it really has to do with the fact that I feel that when they were making this all in one shot, Siege, Earthrise, and Kingdom, they were just kind of going like, okay, we're going to do the Siege designs with the Siege alt modes and the Siege robot modes, And then they knew that these characters were going to get toys in Earthrise, but that wasn't going to be part of the narrative of the story. They were going to be going from Cybertron to space to then prehistoric Earth. It didn't make sense for them to all of a sudden have that, I guess, design change. Like, why is Optimus Prime all of a sudden, a Japanese Hino flat-nosed truck? Even though, again, yeah, you could argue, well, I mean, look at his Siege design. It's some kind of weird truck. And you look at Bumblebee and what he turns into. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. I don't disagree with you. But I think, again, it's such a weird thing that's going on with what was going on with the Netflix series, and how it really is a example of how, when you want to tell a story, how important budget really is to telling that story. I always show people the screenshot that so many hardcore Transformer fans have missed, which is, go watch Beast Wars end credits, the end credits of Beast Wars. Right at the end, it says that, it's covered by the Canadian government. Like, a huge portion of the costs of this show was covered by the Canadian government. And that's why Beast Wars, especially back in like 97, 98, when CG was still in its infancy, was so incredible in comparison to even some of the stuff that you see today that's also supposed to be a 32 episode, 52 episode CG show, primarily because it just had this huge open budget of the Canadian government to make it amazing. And let's not even get into Mainframe Entertainment's other creations like Shadow Raiders and onward. Some of those things are spectacular looking, even compared to Beast Wars from the same creation team. But anyways, that's what I think it is, more or less. I think that they, it's like you have all the characters that had modernized alt modes afterwards from Siege into Earthrise, whether it be, again, the Datsun brothers, Ironhide, Optimus Prime, and then, of course, when you get into even like the Decepticons with the Seeker jets, finally getting their F-15 modes and everything. But that being said, I mean, I just don't see it, like, from a narrative standpoint, it doesn't make sense, and I think that's the primary reason why they didn't do that, because at no point did they have an opportunity to. From a budget standpoint, they probably wouldn't have done it anyways, and thus they did that narrative, because, in all honesty, it would have been so expensive for them to now make all these brand new character models to match what's happening with Earthrise. When Kingdom is over and we finish that last episode on, July 29th, we'll be able to take a step back and really count how many character models there were, how many environments there were, and just, you're going to get a very good, easy scope at just how, like, look how many characters didn't even transform in Earthrise, the Netflix series. Like, they avoided the whole idea of transformations because they probably just didn't want to have to pay for some characters to even have those alt mode designs. They wanted to keep it extremely simple. Okay, here's this character. It's, it's a repaint / remold of a pre-existing model. Let's just keep the robot mode and not worry about having the tool up in alt mode and do the same thing. They kept it on the cheap. And I mean, let's not even get to keeping it on the cheap when it came to voice acting, when it came to probably even scripting in a lot of ways. Like, everything was done very low budget. And I mean, I guess luckily for people, they were so bored due to the big V and the 2020 and 2021 world that we lived in. It still did very well on Netflix because people just needed to binge something, and 6 episodes is, it's not terrible compared to like binging like a 32 or 13 episode series. So a lot of people watched it, but it was, like I said, it's a solid 6 or 7. It's not a absolute disaster like, let's say, the Go 90 stuff that was going on from Machinima. That stuff was just, but it's not like, absolutely terrible. It's right in the middle. It's right in the middle. Good job. CG looks nice. It's not incredible, but it's passable. And the voice acting has a lot of work to do. Again, like, when you have professional voice actors in the Transformer world going like, I don't know about this, then that really, has a lot to say. Like, my opinion of voice acting comes as a fan, but when you have professionals also saying that says a lot about it. So I think that that's really what it is. And getting into what you say, if they're going to rehash G1 all the time, might as well have it in media. Maybe that'll be the future. Maybe after we get past Kingdom, I mean, logically, the next chronological step would have to be at some point reaching that, modern era. I don't know if they're going to continue being on the Beast Planet and in prehistoric time. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but maybe we'll be marching forward into the next thing. Look, these shows, regardless if you like them or not, have had some kind of success in terms of viewership. Netflix is behind that. They're probably going to want more. So whatever the next trilogy is going to be will probably reflect that heavily. So we'll see what happens. I totally sympathize with you with that, but at the same time, I also know how much of a bit of a mess the Netflix series has been just because of that budget. And that's why, I feel that it's much like Transformer Prime, where when I look at Transformer Prime, it could have been a better series. A lot of people love it, don't get me wrong. A lot of people love Transformer Prime, but that was another series too that it actually could have been bigger than what it already was if they didn't throttle the budget so badly and get tricked by a whole bunch of agents in the business, let's put it this way. There was a lot of people attached to that project that ate up a huge amount of the budget, and as a result throttled back a lot of stuff, and as a result Transformer Prime had to really also play with the assets that it had available. It was pretty much saved by its very well done voice acting, and even then the voice acting suffered for it, but the people that they did have was a really good talented crew of people, so they were able to make chicken salad out of chicken shit, as the term goes. But it's something that they did a very good job, and they just had to deal with the limitations of having to do repaints of characters. Look, there was a lot of repaint characters in Transformers Prime. There was a lot of army building. There was very limited environments that they had to play with, and they could have done so much more with a 3-season and movie concept. But the sad truth is that they hired Hollywood writers that were getting overpaid outside of their actual talents, and that ate up the budget. They hired voice actors that their agents started to get wise to their Hollywood abilities, and as a result asked way too much money and ate up the entire voice acting budget, to the point that a lot of characters didn't have voice actors and or lines as a result of it. And then they had to pivot and go to, and again, I'm not knocking the talent of the individuals, they're very talented people, but they went more towards the lower budget anime group of voice actors to fill out the roles in order to make everything balance out. And luckily for them, those individuals that they hired are very talented people that worked out fine. It's kind of like Beast Wars. Beast Wars was the whole Ocean group. Whole bunch of people that, if you track their history, were doing a lot of low budget kind of stuff, Ruby Spears or anime dubs. And luckily those people were extremely talented people. David Kay, Ian Corlett, Gary Chalk, Scott McNeil, Venus. I could go on and on and on. I know I'm leaving out names, Don Brown, but the point is that it worked out in the end. It's not so much the case here with the Netflix series. It's a low budget group of people that, in all honesty, they're really not cutting it. The writing is kind of meh. The voice director, I don't know what's going on with him, if he can even do his job. I feel like I'm throwing it under the bus, but there's a lot of reasons why you're frustrated by it, or in this case you said you're disappointed. It stems from a lot of different things. But either way, just didn't want to end it on a downer, but that's kind of why we got what we got. I'm really hoping that Kingdom will be a step up, but I mean, I had hope going to Earthrise, and it was kind of more of the same. It was a little bit better because I really liked that Skylinks episode, but the rest of it was kind of meh, and I feel that we might get kind of more of the same. But I really love Beast Wars. I really love those characters, so I'm going to kind of go into it hoping that that's going to be awesome. But at the same time, that Go 90 series had a whole bunch of Hot Rod, and it was supposed to have Judd Nelson. So to me, on paper, that would have been awesome, right? But it really wasn't. So we'll see what happens. And hopefully, when it comes out, it won't be as bad as some of us think it will be. So thanks again for the question, Space Ghostal. And again, if you want to be like Space Ghostal and be part of the Patreon, help support the podcast and let us know we're doing a good job, check the pinned comment or check the description below, patreon.com/protoman. And I hope you're all having a good day today and maybe getting that cool toy Galvatron from Hasbro Pulse.